Hi there. Today I'll be discussing about the cost of low birth rate. This was written by Douglas Almond, Kenneth Chay, and David S. Lee. This paper was published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics in 2005. I'll have a short introduction to explain the main concepts, and then explain the framework of how the analysis was conducted. After that, I'll go over the data and the results of the study, and then wrap up with the interpretations that we can get from the paper. Now, the first question that I think we should ask is, what is low birth weight? Basically, this term is used to describe infants who are born with low weight at birth. Well, then you ask, where do you draw the line? Well, the line is drawn at about 2.5 kilograms, or for the Americans, 5.5 pounds. One additional pound, or about 455 grams, can have a difference of $10,000 in hospital charges. Not only that, studies have established correlation between asthma, lung disease, high blood pressure, cerebral palsy, deafness, and blindness. I myself was also born premature at about 6 months, 3 weeks, and I can say with confidence, I've had asthma for over 20 years, and doctors told me I was very fortunate to have avoided many of the symptoms. Also, studies show that infants have issues with IQ, test scores, behavior problems, and cognitive development. Basically, you're going to have some serious issues with your brain. Now, because of its importance, birth weight is a key indicator of infant health in economic research. Sometimes it's seen as a key input in health production functions, and research has shown low birth infants to have poor education, but not only poor education, also self-reported health, you have reduced employment, and you have lower earnings as adults. Because of these important aspects, policy has been directed at targeting low birth weight in infants and the prevention. Now, one of the key determinants is the prevention of smoking during pregnancy. In fact, the cross-sectional association of smoking and low birth weight, and by extension, low birth infants and their mortality, has deemed smoking to be a significant risk factor. Now, if you study econometrics or any other quantitative analysis course, you see that there's an important limit to this logic. Although we can establish that birth weight and infant mortality have a correlation, there might be some omitted variables that might affect both birth weight and infant mortality. For example, you have genetics. They can cause both a low birth weight and lower mortality, and increasing birth weight by the external intervention would do little to increase the mortality. So, what's the solution to these unobservable confounding factors? Well, the authors used twins that were born in the United States between 1983 and 2000. Because twins are identical, and by genetics or other predetermined aspects, the difference that we'd observe will be solely due to external environmental aspects. Another complementary analysis is using maternal smoking during pregnancy in order to see its effects on a variety of health outcomes. Now I'll discuss the framework of the analysis and how it was done, and the parameters of interest, as well as the identification strategies. Here we can see the main regression, where H is health of the newborn, J for mother I, and BW to be birth weight, XI to be vector of mother-specific variables of health, AI to be the mother-specific unobservable determinants of health, which are time-invariant, entity-specific, and EI to be idiosyncratic errors. It's quite straightforward in my opinion. However, because, as you can see here, because these aspects each of these variables might affect Hij in one way or the other, the normal OLS that is used overestimates the impacts of birth weight on health. Hence, the covariance between birth weight and XI, as well as AI, might be important because it might show that the strength of the OLS is driven by these unobserved variables. So in this paper, there are two different strategies used to estimate the beta coefficient. The first is including mother fixed effects on twins. Now, since twins share the same mother and all mother-specific aspects are controlled for, as well as all other factors, such as genetics, with this assumption, we assume that eta is uncorrelated with birth weight, then the beta would be unbiased, while for fraternal twins, beta would be biased. Second, the authors conduct a between-mother analysis where they estimate the direct effect of maternal smoking on infant mortality. Again, we have a straightforward OLS. And in number 5, AI is a residual from regression AI on XI, A star I, apologies. Now, in order for phi to be unbiased, we need smoke to be uncorrelated with A star I. Now, the authors mentioned that, yes, with observation, a randomized trial showed that cessation of smoking during pregnancy had no effect on gestation length and APGAR scores. We'll go more into that. But this is purely observational, and some might think that with this 4, 1, and 5, that this OLS is a reminiscence of 2 squared least squared. However, just to clarify, this is not 2SLS, simply because even I cannot be convinced that the exclusion restriction holds. Smoking might affect the health of infants in other ways, such as nicotine or tar. And if the impacts of smoking are cumulative, so where's the guarantee that cessation instantly stops all the effect on babies? Moving on, we can ask the question, what causes low birth weight? Now, there are two main factors. The first is you're born premature. That means that is when the baby is delivered prior to its delivery date by a month or two. The second is when babies are born with low birth weight despite at a given gestation length. This is known as intrauterine growth retardation or restriction. Let's call it IUGR for short. Now, empirically, gestation length is an important determinant for birth weight. However, most of the focus on many studies, including this one, focus on IUGR simply because the causes of prematurity is still not understood, while IUGR is understood as being caused by malnutrition and smoking. Both strategies have their strengths and weaknesses, as smoking-induced variation allows direct assessment on which factor causes the low birth weight, but is unable to control for all the mother differences and external factors, while using fixed effects with twins is able to control for all differences, but is unable to assess what causes the effects that influence IUGR. Now, how do we measure HI? To measure HIJ, we need 4 main outcome variables. The first is infant mortality, the infant death at up to 1 year after birth. The second is APGAR score, which is a set of scores that if as the initial health status shown to be a predictor of infants' chances to survive. The third is a newborn's usage of ventilator for assisted breathing, which is also an indicator for the health as well as costs of delivery. The last is hospital cost, where the authors use data of hospital charges incurred. Okay, so let's talk about the data. Twins are of great interest in health and medical literature. This is because while twins only consist of 3% of all the birth, remarkably they consist over 21% of low birth weight births, as well as 14% of preterm births, and of the 3%, 13% of all infant deaths. Twins are more likely to die within 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, and 1 year. They also tend to be lighter as well. Now, there are demographic differences, as the mother of twins tend to be black, older, more educated, and married. Now for the results. Let's start with the main results. As you can see, Table 3 is divided into samples which include those with congenital anomalies, and excluding them in column 3 and 4. The fixed effects regression shows that compared to the pooled OLS, there is a significant decrease in the coefficient. Also, by including anomalies, the coefficient falls even further. Now let's look at Table 6. This is the OLS effect of smoking. Now if we take a look here, without going into the full details of the logic functions, we can see that the birth weight stands out as the only variable that has a strong association with maternal smoking. So, with these results, what conclusions can we draw from this? Well, we can draw two conclusions. One daring conclusion is that the OLS estimates and the payoffs to low birth weight prevention is greatly exaggerated. The second, the more conservative conclusion, is that the impact of low birth weight is dependent on which of the environmental factors is influencing birth weight. So simply put, targeting low birth weight might have little to no effect on minimizing infant health complications. So that's what this entire paper was about. Thank you for listening, and if you have questions, please ask. Thank you.